Hello again, Pearl here, and I'm going to talk today about to continue the conversation of the basics in astrology. Um, and today I want specifically to talk about the houses and what is a house. And there's 12 houses, basically, like there's 12 signs. And in this method of astrology, we use what is whatever's in the house. And as I said, this is starter material now. You will find that there's various different ways of reading it as time goes on that'll fine tune your information. But you need to have this basic understanding of the 12 houses. There's 12 signs, and there's fundamentally 9 uh, nava. Nava means 9 grahas. Graha means energy that holds us. So the 9 planets, the Nava Graha, is the name for them. Bhava, Bhava, is the Sanskrit term we use for the houses. It's like a place, or I describe it as a circumstance. And then you have the signs of the zodiac, which is the Rashi, Rasi. Now, we have signs and planets. The sign, the planet, the graha, and the houses. And we have symbols to go with the signs, the planets, and the houses, which are very helpful to learn. And I'll do that on a different take. But on this, I want specifically to focus on the house. And there's 12 houses, as I said, and each house represents somebody in your life or a circumstance in your life. One of the ways I like to describe it is like a bow and arrow, where the bow represents the sign, the quality that you've gotten, because everybody gets all 12 qualities. So the bow is what you have. The planet is the arrow that's pointed a particular direction. So the arrow is put on the bow to achieve what is a target, what is a need you have, whether it's the need for a relationship, a job, health, well-being, courage, whatever it is that you need. The house is there to represent that. There's a house that represents that, or a person that represents it either. So it's probably easier first off to understand it as a person, and the person is part of your tribe that you come in with. You're born into the world, and the I that is you is the first house, and that's based on the relationship between the earth. You are the earth, and the heavens conjoin and produce you at that moment in time, when there was a particular sign of the zodiac in the background that said, this is the essential I that has come through in this moment in time. And so that first house, in other words, that sign of the zodiac that was in the background, you will carry a lot of that quality through you, and you need to be able to express that. You need to be able to look like that. So when you go to an astrologer and say you come in, I'm just saying now, we'd say Jupiter is inclined to be very big, we say. And so if you come into a sign that's maybe inclined to be small or tiny, or if you come in, with the softness in your face when the sign of the zodiac might show that, well, maybe you don't quite look that soft. We'd say like a Capricorn sign, for instance, ruled by Saturn, you'd probably expect those people to be thin and kind of elderly looking, you know, because it's Saturn and Saturn looks older. But then if you put the moon in the first house, in Saturn's sign, you get the softness of the moon, the expression of the planet that sits in the first house will become obvious. So when somebody comes to you and they don't have a time of birth, or they give you a time of birth and they don't look anything like what you think they might look like, based on the qualities of each of the signs, you know. And it would be the first house that you would look at, because that's what they present first. So first impressions last, you know, it's there. And so you should see something of those qualities, you know. And so that's where the astrology and being maybe able to adjust the time of birth somewhat. Now, it's not an exact science, you know, it's not going to give you the moment of birth or anything, but it'll certainly put you in a way of recognizing it. And I'm not going to go into it in any detail now, but in divisional charts particularly, you know, because we get a birth chart, which is like a map of Ireland, we'd say. But if you wanted to visit the different counties, you would get maybe an ordnance survey map of an area where you want a lot more detail. And so you can do that with astrology. It breaks down into divisional charts. But say in the ninth division, or what we describe as the D9, the first house there is going to show you what talent you came in with, because what's in the divisional chart, the D9 as we call it, it shows the innate talents that are within you, and those will be expressed through the talents you have, you know. So if somebody comes in and they don't have a time of birth and they're a great musician, you think, well, the sun has had some impact on their first house in the Navamsha, because they have that talent, you know. So it's very helpful. We need to know the houses. That's why we need a time of birth. We need to know the house. We need to know the time you came in, you know, to really be able to narrow down and even use the divisional charts at all, because they change so quickly, you know. Whereas with the houses change. There's 12 signs, there's 12 houses. So in the space of a day, there's 24 hours. So in the day, the sun is going to do the whole circle. So each sign rises for roughly 2 hours. So in the space of a day, say if you're born today and sunrise was at, say, 7 o'clock, well, it's sunrise is what's rising. And if you're born at midnight, that'll be 1 o'clock in the morning. So you'd put the sun in the dark, you know, whereas at sunrise, the sun is on the horizon. And what the first house is what's on the horizon at the moment you arrived. That's your first house. We need to know at what time did that happen? Did that connection between you, the earth, you came to earth from the gods, from the heavens, from your ancestors, from all that went before you, that brought you, this special, unique being, into the world at this time. And that's what that stamp is. And that first house assigns all the roles to the planets, like we talked about earlier. It assigns all the roles to the houses. That first starting point is like, I describe it as the puck out of a ball in hurling. It's the fella behind it and what he's aiming at, and at that particular moment in time, and every energy that went behind it, full force to get it to where he wants it to go, you know. And that's what life is like. That first house is our puck out of the ball, and our potential is scattered all over the field of wherever it's going to go. And you'll meet other people on the field with you. Now, the people on the field, like I talk about the puck out of the ball because we have hurling in Ireland. I think it's the only place in the world that they have it. But anyway, it's a great game. But it's part of our culture. Our culture is our second house. It's our values. It's what we've come into. It's what we treasure. It's what we hold as valuable. You know, it's what nurtures us. It's what feeds us. Is the nation and the values we come into that feed us. Now, if it doesn't feed us, if we have a problem in the second house where food is withdrawn, or if there's difficulties and troubles in the second house, like coming back to the first house, if there's difficulties in the first house, you don't feel good about yourself. Even though you're special, unique, nothing else like you in the whole world, you know. As Oscar Wilde said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. You know, but you do own yourself. It's the only thing you own is yourself. And so, and to appreciate that I, and that I is divine. It has the light of the divine sitting in you that says, you're special, you've come with something special to do. And all the other roles that we'll talk about, all the other 12 or other 11, they're I am. So the I am Irish, you know, I am Pearl, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a, you know, I am all these roles. But the I behind all that, behind all those is the divine I. And that's what we need to stay in touch with and keep connected to that we came from, you know. But all of these different conditions that we step into and the tribe we come into, and they all have an agenda, you know, that's their special role as well. And so we have to learn to play with each other. We have to learn to dance together in a harmonious way. And we might have issues to work out for each other, or issues we're going to help each other to work out, because they're all helpers. All this crew that came with you, or that you've come in just to mix with, we have to befriend them all. Otherwise, the job is not done. We'll have to come back and do it again with maybe less harmony, or maybe more, depending. You might come in to help out someone for a while, or, you know, but that's what we're here to do. So everybody else that's in your life, every other house, is somebody else. So as I said, the second house is the culture, the family, the language, the food, all of those things that are in your community that you get as a child nourished by. Okay. And so the third house is your courage, your siblings, your neighbours, who you get to learn to fight with. The third house is where you learn as a child how to gather your strength, how you make things happen, you know, how you fight your corner. And so it's your personal ambition as well, your third house. So, and even your virility, you know, how much drive you have to form a relationship is also very much part of the third house. It drives you on to, there's a lot of the Mars quality around the third house, because you need that drive on to have ambition to do anything. So anything that's affecting that third house that would limit it and we'll go to that another time. But just to move through the houses, it's good to understand what relationship is there in that space, and so you can get a sense. Well, if you're not getting on with your brothers, for instance, or your siblings, then you know there's territory there that you need to learn to work with, or you need to learn to operate with, because you've come together. Your parents are the god and the goddess that created you. So we're in this together. And so um the next house is the fourth house. And the fourth house is your stability. It's your peace of mind, it's your safety. It's your mother. It's your mother's mother. It's kind of what the ancestry to do with the mother as well. It's the energy of you as mother, because, as I said, in the third house, you're a sibling too. You're a warrior as well. So how well are you able to fight? It's not just the warriors that are in your space, but they teach you how to fight. The mother teaches you how to mother. You know, and so you take on that quality that's there for you, that made you feel safe, or you try to provide that quality that made you feel safe in the world, because that's the fourth house. The fourth house is home, sanctuary, and where we go to feel safe. It's our nest. And the mother is the character that we learn that from, first and foremost. And so she has a hugely important role of providing a root for us that keeps us safe in the world. And so the next house is what we create. The fifth house is what we create. And so the fifth can be your child, it can be a poem, it can be a painting, it can be a student, it can be some form of divinity that you give your heart to. Fifth house is your devotion. It's your heart of what you would willingly give of yourself to for. And nobody else can touch that. Nobody else can tell you what that can be. Only you. No matter who you go to. And all astrology gives you in a lot of ways is clues. It gives you symbols that you could say, well, you have a particular sign in the fifth house. Okay, so you might be, we'd say if it's a female sign, you could find yourself, giving devotion to the divine feminine, or alternatively, you might find devotion in the elements, or you might find, different methods. It's whatever's in your own heart. Nobody can tell you that except yourself, because that's what's going to sustain you and support you, is what you love, what you willingly give your heart to. And so that's the fifth house. And so the child is the predominant, your own child would be a physical manifestation, as I said, but it could be a student, or it could be. The sixth house is what we describe as your enemy, but really your enemy is somebody who comes into you as something that you do that's not good for you, that's an enemy to you because you do it to yourself. And in a way, you can't digest the experience. So the sixth house is the house of digestion as well. And so if you're not able to digest the experience that you're having, well, maybe you need to change your diet. It might be your diet of food. It might be your diet in the people you're associating with. It might be the type of activities that you're going on with that really don't suit you. But these are your enemies that you have to fight. And when they talk in the Bhagavad Gita about, Arjuna being there to fight the fight, and saying you have to take it on, you've no choice. And he says, I'm not able, I can't do this. But we have to take on the fight, and the sixth house is often described as the house of pending karma. It's just unfinished from what was your previous life, and so it's very much up to be dealt with now. Is areas that you struggle with, and if you have problems in the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth house, if you have planets in those places that are causing some restraint or restriction in any of those areas, or the sixth, you won't be able to relate in the world. You won't be able to come out in the world and do all the other houses are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's you. Like once you go to the seventh house, you're trying to interact with the outside world. What's going on in the other 5 houses is you as an inner being, and how you are, how safe do you feel? How courageous do you feel? How nourished do you feel? How well do you feel about yourself? First, second, third, fourth house. Have you love in your life? Is there anything you love in your life? Or do you go into the criticism and the anger and the bitterness and the frustration of the sixth house? Because that cripples everything. So if you have no love, if you have no safety, you've no courage, you've no food, and you've been told you're good for nothing, where do you go? How much of it goes on? Even the mockery that goes on of people doing different things, or maybe have a different religion, or have a different colour, or have a different preference, and people openly mock these things, even in the press. That they choose to target a particular person's way of self-expression, and it's so unfair, it's so cruel, because everybody is entitled as an individual, unique being. We've been given this option. We've been given the option of free choice, and to restrict us into uniforms and restrict us into a way of thinking that's disrespectful to the human being, and to our intelligence, and to our, education system particularly, wear the uniform, sit down and shut up and be quiet and get your head full of nonsense that's no good to you in life anyway. They're not teaching you about the herbs. They're not teaching you about the divinity that's in you. They're not teaching you about the qualities that are so important to nurture you, to allow you to go out into the world and really provide and make a difference to society. Because when we go into the seventh house, and whether we're able to relate or not, whether we're able to cooperate with other people, whether we're able, if we're not able to cooperate with ourselves, in our own heads, never mind the siblings, the mother, the children, the students, we're fighting with them all. where the battlefield it's too intense, it's too much. It wears us down. That's why the drug companies can make a fortune, calming us down, because we're set up for so much drama. There's so much, yeah. But anyway, to come back to, this is the beauty of astrology. If you see the pattern, if you see where the hurt is, if you see what's hurting, then we can start moving towards healing. But until you can see where the hurt is, where the wound is, we can't heal, and those that can heal, because those that go out into the world, they're either spreading the sickness or they're spreading the love, and so when we do go out into the world, we go to the seventh house, whether we're going to business or partnership or relationship with a significant other. We'll either, as I said, bring our sickness and suffering, or bring our love and care and compassion into that relationship. with the significant other. Same with the eighth house. Eighth house is the debts we've carried from our previous life and the things like that we might have been born with some difficulty the debt needs to be paid. Now those of us that have arms and legs and eyes and all those bits and pieces and intelligent, we have a lot going for us, in terms of the karma that we've come in with, that we have all those things. We come into a safe environment, we get fed, watered, we get all those fundamentals. So we're on a good road. We've come in with good assets, and we need to be thankful for the assets that we've come in with. And where the challenges are, be willing to pay the debts, or whatever comes up to be done, because that's what our journey is about, is to clear whatever is there, and to bring the gifts that we've been given, or the opportunities to. So eighth house is always a transformative space. Like the first house is yourself. The eighth house from the first house transforms us. It allows us to come through and bring about the changes that we need to see happen. And the eighth house from any house will transform. And if you're in a relationship with somebody where you have an eighth house between two people, like when we do compatibility with charts, when you see what we call a 6-8 relationship, where there is a challenge, where there is an issue to be sorted out, then that can get really contentious, and now we might decide that I'm out of there, I'm not going to stay around, but in actual fact, it can be a good thing if you're willing to face it, because there's some issue that you have unfinished business there. And maybe it's better to deal with it now, the next lifetime. Maybe you'll be in different circumstances next time, and so you might be as well to play it out and see, or you think, no, that's too stressful, and it's just creating anxiety, where really all you want is peace of mind, and you say, I don't need to be adding to the dramas in the world by staying in a situation that's constantly upsetting, but we have to make those choices, and really the choice is the attitude, the attitude that we have to change, that has to be transformed, to see that person as unique and spiritual and divine, and as well, that aside from maybe the whatever the conflict is, it can be finance, or it can be usually sex related, or money, and money is usually at the background to most problems. That's basically when it comes down to it. So whatever the debt is, we have to wind up paying it anyway sometime. Now the ninth house is the house of fortune. It's the house of the father. It's the faith of the fathers. It's the guru. It's the advisor. It's the guide. So the ninth from any place is the house of fortune from that place. And particularly the ninth from Jupiter. Look to the ninth from Jupiter for guidance. Whatever planet is there will guide you. Just follow that particular signpost and it'll take care of you. Because Jupiter shows us our way forward. Wherever Jupiter sits brings the most benefit. Wherever he goes to, whatever he transits, he brings you, and he'll only bring it to you if it's for your greater good. He won't bring it to you to party. He won't bring it to you to satisfy your need for chocolate, or that's not what he does. Now he does like sweet things, but that's not what his goal is. His goal is to get you to expand your consciousness, to bring you to a higher awareness, to get you to a place of devotion, prayer, being able to help, being able to guide, like the best teachers are the people who create the most teachers. You know, it's not what accolades a teacher might get, but it's more to do with who's who's willing to carry what you've come to teach. And I consider myself particularly blessed to have met some extraordinary teachers. Now, I've met some right hairpins as well, I'd have to say, before I met extraordinary teachers. But you know, in terms of astrology, I have met extraordinary people, and I'm feel very fortunate to have gotten to be inspired by Sanjay Rath particularly, you know, that has helped me in understanding this amazing subject. And it's really, you know, yeah, I've always had a passion for what's out there in the stars anyway, but I'm wanting to get an understanding. But I really feel blessed to have got his guidance, and um, yeah, it's been a great blessing. The ninth house is the house of fortune, and so that's, keep an eye on the ninth house. Sanjay also says that if you're going to wear any gemstone, wear the stone associated with the ninth house. Um, but again, you need to be aware that if you are going to wear a gemstone, it needs to be of very good quality, and you need to be aware that maybe if you're wearing it, you might be causing some other person a problem. So you need to be aware of what you're triggering when you do decide to take on a gemstone. It's an energy of itself. It's going to maybe help a situation, but again, the teaching would be you might be better off going through the situation rather than getting a gemstone to avoid or to ease a burden for you, um, and not create a burden for someone else by wearing a gemstone. Everything we do affects somebody else in the tribe. So we need to be aware of what we're doing in terms of enhancing energies, or you're better to do a donation if you're going to want to ease the burden in any specific area of your life. You're better to give something of yourself that costs you something, that causes you to have to share something of yourself, than to be taking on wearing something to help you avoid something, you know. So the ninth house is the house of its protection, um, and it inspired your life. Like the ninth house is the father, the first house is you, and the fifth house is your child, you know. So that's again a 159 relationship. There's always something there inspiring that brings to life, so something else can be born. So the fifth house from any house is what's going to be born um, out of any house. It's what's created. As I said, the only thing we are to do in terms of maths and astrology is count from 1, 2, 3, 12, but recognize what the fifth from any space. Like as I said, the fifth house is the house of creativity. So the fifth house from the third house is the seventh house. So you create a relationship out of your desire to make things happen for yourself. You create a relationship. And you create a relationship, you create the fifth house in there, which is a friend or a community. Or that's fifth house in there, the 11th house. The 10th house is the house of our activities, our work, our role in the world. And the person associated there is usually the boss, or the activities that you have achieved. Like if you've managed to make your way from the first house to the 10th house, to have climbed that mountain, which is what the 10th house represents, just like the qualities of the Capricorn, you've reached the pinnacle of your career. You're out there, you're recognized for doing what you're doing. Like here I am today on this video talking about this, and I'm saying it's very important for people to know this. I really want people to know this, you know, that there is a method of understanding what we're meant to be looking towards achieving. And the 10th house is the work that primarily we're here to do, whether it's that within the community or whatever, but the indications of what's in that house is the activity, whether it is a hobby or whatever the activity is that you're predominantly going to be seen and respected for. You've reached the height of your achievement in the 10th house. And so if you do achieve the height of your achievement, of your ability, it means you've come on that road of coming from your first house, you, the unique you, coming through and find an expression for yourself, have managed to deal with all your weaknesses and deal with the relationships and pay your debts and, help, teach, learn, guide, become the guru, and you've now come to this place of satisfaction. And satisfaction is 11th house. 11th house is either I've got no satisfaction and you want more and more and more and you can never get enough, or you can drop the expectations. Because the more we have desire, the more we want, the more reason we're going to come back again. It's unfinished if we're full of desire going. I actually feel that by teaching this, I might not need to come back and do this again, or even getting into a relationship, Is there somebody that I want to come back for? Is there some relationship that I think is unfinished business that I'm going to have to do again? If there's a desire in me going, I'll come back to it because it's in me, unfinished, So we have to be careful of what our expectations are, Like if my back garden never gets done, which is a current reality, if it never gets done, am I going to have to come back as a gardener, with strong enough arms to be able to do it myself? I don't know. But anyway, it's just an example of, in a lot of ways, much wants more. But what we have to give, what we have to share, what we have to willingly give and share within our community is what really 11th house is about. That we're able to give it in the community, in the society that we're in. With all this experience, we've learned how to live, we've learned how to grow, we've learned how to surrender, we've learned how to share, we've learned how to help others, And so that's what 11th house is about. It's about humanitarian efforts to improve other people's lives from what we've learned. That's really ultimately what I see the 11th house is about. Now, the 11th house is also to do with friends, is to do with elder siblings, is to do with people that are more elderly than you. And so, as I said, it's good to be friends with all of those people that we meet along the way. But another interesting thing, the income is what comes to you from the 11th house. So, and again, another analogy is that the rainfall comes in the 11th house. The flow comes, the income, the gains come from the 11th house. And so your well is the second house. The second house is what you value. It's how you store the income. The income is in the 11th, but how you store it, whether you store it in books, cryptocurrency, houses, cars, whatever you value is the way you'll store your assets. It can be paintings, can be You know, it's to do with a preference. Again, your chart will indicate how you like to store your your wealth, or what you consider to be wealth, because some people see wealth in lots of different ways. They might think dyeing their hair a particular color is worth spending 150 quid on. You know, where other people wouldn't dream of it, like, but to spend 150 quid in a book if they value the author and what it, you know, or it just depends on what people value and how they see what's valuable. It's not right nor wrong, it's only difference. And to value differences, is a big part of what this is all about, because 11th house is the house of friends. So you can be friends with people with lots of different values if you can appreciate that what they value is why not do it different, and it makes it all the more special. And that's the thing of this globalism. Fair enough, um, but like when you go to different countries and you see the different styles, and you see the different cultures and the different personalities and accents, and it's wonderful. Why would we all want to be the same? It's not meant that way. Each ground has its own quality that's expressed to the community that's born in that ground, and out of that ground, like the trees or the herbs or the quality of, we need to appreciate the differences, not wipe out the and let's everybody all wear blue and yellow. For instance, scrap the green in Ireland. That was we were traditionally associated with it, and we're all turning blue and yellow at the moment. Next year maybe it'll be a different color, um, but there's a uniqueness that's beautiful in every culture, and it's to be celebrated. Um, like you couldn't really be wearing the sari in Ireland because it's so cold here. We have to wear wool. We have to have, you know, it's so cold, wet, damp. Whereas there, you can eat different. It's easier, to be in heat. But then some of us just absolutely collapse in the heat. We can't do the heat, because it's 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 too unmanageable. So yeah, we're suited to the whatever the climate is and the environment we come into. But that's enough about the 11th house anyway. But yeah, it's all about making friends with everybody. Everything has to wind up being enough. I have enough. I've done enough. And be grateful and share it. Help other people to have enough as well if you can. And so the next house is the 12th house. And the 12th house is actually going back to the divinity. You can see in a lot of ways, I suppose, in the 11th house, the men in society tend to go to the sports and the showing young lads how to continue. We'd say to play hurling, or that they spend their time out there bringing lads training and showing them what they learned and the culture, or whether it's music or the dance, or in the culture in the society. The men tend to go towards do the community type activities and go out and help out where they can, or show their skills that they've learned, shared with the generations coming after them when they get older and they've retired. Whereas the women tend to go to the church. The women tend to go. I'm not saying they don't show their skills, of course they do, but they're more inclined. The 12th house would be more inclined to go back to God and being that bit closer to the god. And the other thing as well about the houses, and the signs for that matter, is that the women get the hardest houses. The 6th, the 8th, the 12th. They get the hardest houses to deal with. They have to fix the problems. They have to wipe the tears. They have to carry the load, and and um, and to do it with compassion, to help society to continue. That's necessary to have those qualities, to be able to mop up the mess from the whereas the 12th house is the house of compassion, is the house of forgiveness, is the house of the feet are particularly associated with it, the ancestors, the grandmother, the relatives that have gone on before us, that they're all there in the 12th house waiting for us. And so when we go to sleep at night, and that's a 12th house experience, we have to let go into sleep. We have to lie down and you could say be ready to die. So we go to our prayer, we go to whatever it is that helps us to let go of all our worldly experiences for the day. We expect to rise again tomorrow, which is very optimistic of us because there's no guarantee. We don't know when we're going. But the 12th house is like our passing on as well, because we're not here forever. We will go, we will all go. And so to be at peace with ourselves and to have gotten into the habit of what you want to go to when you do go. If you do it before you go to sleep at night, or pray for it before you go to sleep at night, then you're more likely to go there when you do go, because you're in the habit of going into that place. So how you bring yourself to sleep, it gets you ready for how you're going to go for the ultimate sleep and where you're likely to go to. So in this chart here, you can see the sort of connections, and I'd like if you could to maybe use this image as a reminder of the 3 levels, and even to write them up, whatever you might remember, and to do the houses in green, do the signs in a blue, and do the planets in a red. So you see the red as they're taking the action. You see the houses as the circumstances that you're going to live within, and the people who are going to be involved in those houses with you. And then, you just have, you'll see you're holding a pattern for yourself as you're learning this language, because you can't do astrology without learning this. So you've got to get a feel for it. Get a feel for it in the pattern, in the people, in the personalities, in the targets, what's important for you as a target, and the signs of the zodiac similar. And the other thing that's interesting to note as well, just on the signs, each sign, there's a pattern of Pisces is a feminine sign, Aries is a male sign, Taurus is a feminine sign. Every second one is either masculine or feminine, assertive or passive. So the air signs and the fire signs are masculine, and the water signs and the earth signs are feminine. And so every second one, the fire and the air are more likely to be out there driving to make things happen and wanting to make things happen. And the air circulates, as we said, all over the place. The fire rises up whereas the water comes down and it cools, and the earth grounds. So they're feminine qualities, do you know? And so they repeat the fire, Aries, every five. Fire, fire, fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Always count the sign, include the sign you start from when you're doing the count from. And so the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So get to know the pattern. Get to know the element, the earth, the fire, the air, the water. And very simply, just start naming them. It's a fire sign. It's a feminine sign. It's a, it's a ruled by Mars, or ruled by Venus, or ruled by Venus. Like which Venus rules, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Jupiter. And the tough guys in a chart are the Mars, because he wants to drive on. He's young. He's young, new energy. He wants to make things happen. Saturn is the elder, and he wants to hold things the way they were. And the Rahu is a challenge to change, to transform, to bring about new, to bring the revolution. Okay? And so when these lads, the Saturn, the Rahu, and the Mars, and the Rahu is described within the Bhagavad Gita as the greed, the rogue, the energy that looks to get what he wants, beg, steal, or borrow. Or Saturn, the darkness, the ignorance, the not having the right knowledge. So Saturn shows our grief and what causes grief. And when he sits with something, there's going to be grief in that area. We all have it someplace. We all have the rogue in it someplace. There's no point in coming the Holy Joe to astrology, because we all know, as everybody, Leonard Cohen sings, everybody knows. The dove will be bought and sold and bought again. It's just the way it is. What's another line that was? Yeah. There's another song that he sings, the anthem, and in that he says that every heart to love will come, but like a refugee. And at the moment, Jupiter's like that refugee, crawling into Pisces today to be restored in the love of the unconditional in the sign of Pisces. That's the energy of today. And the Venus, the moon, these qualities, when these lads are associated with these lads, and they all touch off each other. Like when you're reading a chart, that's the thing. If you go to any of these printouts or whatever, the softwares, they can calculate everything for you and everything, but it is only the intuitive and when you start letting them dance together and you see them playing with each other, that it becomes alive. And so I recommend to people and students, have a go. Just put the pieces together. If the soft lads are getting in the company of a lot of heavy hitters, you know that the soft lad is going to get crushed. And so there's work to be done in this lifetime for that person in that area. That's primarily how I start looking at a chart. Who's hurting? Who got hurt before that amends have to be made for? Where was the damage done? And so that's where bringing alive, treating the softer energies, like the role of the masculine energy is supposed to be to protect what is the feminine, the softer energies, to mind the women and the children, and make sure that society is a safe place for the softer energy. But unfortunately, you know, the war is such a is it's such madness, really, that so much money is spent on, rather than feeding the women and children, they would spend it on war weapons. Why? But it's a masculine energy. They say it's to protect, but actually it's like men and their toys in a lot of ways, the masculine, tough energy that needs that outlet, that Mars outlet for the energy that is um, too demanding of what it wants. It's young, it's new, let's make it happen, let's see how this works. It's like it's a cold approach without the softness of the Venus, the Mercury, the Moon. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today and for now. And I'm hoping that you enjoyed my journey through the houses and the signs and the planets, and having a chart to hand as you learn that lists down the some of the key points that helps you, just a quick reference as you start looking at charts, would be very helpful. Yeah. Thank you again for